You are the man who almost ran the world's most admired company. Not a minor player, the man Jack Welch personally groomed as his successor at General Electric. And then in 2001, you don't get the job. Robert Nardelli does not become CEO of GE. Instead, the board goes another direction, and after 18 years of building and winning and competing harder than almost anyone alive, you were handed the consolation prize, Home Depot. Home Depot is not a consolation prize on paper. It's a $46 billion retailer, one of the most recognized brands in America. But it is not GE. And the people running it, the founders, the old guard, the orange apron culture that built it from the ground up, they know you didn't choose them. They know they were handed to you because you had nowhere else to go. You arrive running like GE, centralize everything, enforce metrics on everything, impose discipline on a company that was built on entrepreneurial chaos. You bring in military veterans. You institute Six Sigma processes for a hardware store. You cut costs with the precision of someone who spent 2 decades optimizing jet engine manufacturing. And you watch the numbers improve while something else quietly dies. Customer service scores crater, employee morale craters. The co-founders go on television and call it a disaster. What organizational psychologists studying the Nardelli tenure identified was a specific failure mode, the psychological contract mismatch. Research by Edgar Schein at MIT describes psychological contracts as the implicit mutual obligations between employer and employee, the unwritten understanding of what the culture is, what it values, what it rewards. When a leader arrives whose entire identity was built inside a different contract, GE's meritocratic intensity, and attempts to transplant it wholesale, the existing contract doesn't update. It breaks. And when it breaks in a culture built on service, the customer feels it before anyone admits it. By 2007, Home Depot's stock had dropped 8% during a period when the broader market was up nearly 50%. The board asked you to leave. Your exit package was $210 million. The shareholders sued. The analysts called it one of the most expensive leadership failures in American retail history. The promotion wasn't the wrong move for Home Depot. It was the wrong move for you. A man whose entire neural wiring was calibrated for GE. The orange aprons were never going to be jet engines, and you were never going to stop trying to make them into one. You are the most powerful woman in American business. Fortune has named you that, not once, 5 years in a row. You ran Lucent Technology's largest division. You built relationships across the industry. You are sharp and driven, and the kind of person who walks into a boardroom and changes the temperature of it. In 1999, Hewlett-Packard makes you their CEO, the first woman to run a Dow 30 company. This is the beginning. HP in 1999 is not a broken company. It is a complex, sprawling, deeply proud company with a culture so specific that employees call it the HP way, a document, almost a religion, about consensus, decentralization, employee trust, engineering excellence. You walk into the HP way and you see bureaucracy. You see slowness. You see a company that needs to change or die. You are probably not wrong about this. The Compaq acquisition is your answer, a $25 billion merger that you fight for publicly, aggressively, personally, while the founding families fight you in the press, while the board wavers, while employees vote against it, while everyone who built the HP way tells you you are making a catastrophic mistake. You win the vote by a thin margin. The merger closes in 2002. You have just created the largest personal computer company in the world. Research by Harvard Business School professor Rakesh Khurana on CEO succession and institutional identity describes what happens next with clinical precision. When a new leader's strategic vision requires dismantling the founding culture, the culture fights back through every channel available: turnover, passive resistance, customer signal decay, internal coalition building. HP did all of this. The engineers who defined what HP meant quietly started leaving. The brand premium HP had commanded in enterprise markets started eroding. The integration was slower, more expensive, and more disruptive than any projection. By 2005, the board fired you. The headline number? During your tenure, HP lost more than half its market value. The real number was harder to quantify. How much of the HP way was still there when you left? The promotion revealed a structural incompatibility that no amount of talent could override. You were exceptional at what made you exceptional. The HP way needed something different. Neither of those things is the whole story, but the job made sure both became true at the same time. You have spent years watching people get worse at their jobs, not because they stopped trying, not because they got lazy, because they were good at the job before this one, and someone decided that was the qualification they needed. You are a school teacher turned educational administrator turned author, and the thing you have figured out, the thing that is so obvious once you see it that you cannot stop seeing it, is that every organization in the world is slowly filling up with people who are not good at their current job. Laurence J. Peter publishes The Peter Principle in 1969 with Raymond Hull. The thesis is deceptively simple. In any hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to their level of incompetence. You are promoted because you are good at what you do. Then you are promoted again for the same reason. You keep going up until you reach a role where you are no longer good at what you do. And there you stop because you are no longer earning the next promotion. The hierarchies of the world, therefore, gradually fill at every level with people who have been promoted one step too far. What makes this darkly specific is that Peter documented it not as theory, but as observation. He cataloged real cases from school administration, from corporate life, from government. The military officer who was a superb battlefield tactician and a disastrous general. The brilliant engineer promoted to manager who couldn't manage. The nurse promoted to head administrator who could no longer care for patients and was miserable trying to do budget reports. And then Peter himself was promoted. His book made him famous. He became a professor at the University of Southern California, where he was given administrative responsibilities he found genuinely difficult. A man who had spent his career diagnosing exactly this problem, now living inside it. He documented this, too, without appearing to find it funny, which is perhaps the most clarifying detail of all. Researchers at the National Bureau of Economic Research published a 2019 study examining promotion patterns across 214 companies with 53,000 sales employees. The finding? The single strongest predictor of promotion was individual sales performance. The problem? Individual sales performance had almost no correlation with managerial performance. The best salespeople, promoted to managers, consistently performed worse at managing than their lower-performing counterparts who were promoted. Every organization you have ever been part of runs on this logic. The person at the front of the room got there because they were good at something that is not the same as being good at this. You already know which person at your job is there. You have just built the first commercially successful portable computer. Not the first portable computer, but the first one that sells. The Osborne 1, 1981, 24 pounds, a folding 5-inch screen, 2 floppy drives, bundled software worth more than the machine itself. You are selling 10,000 units a month. You are the future. You announce the Osborne 2 too early. This is the thing that ends you. Not a competitor, not a design flaw, not a market shift, a press conference. In 1983, Adam Osborne stands at a podium and tells the world that the Osborne 2 is coming, it is better in every way, and it will be available soon. The room is excited. The industry is impressed. Your customers stop buying. Why would anyone buy an Osborne 1 today when the Osborne 2 will be available in 6 months? The math is obvious. The demand collapse was immediate, catastrophic, and entirely self-inflicted. Sales dropped from 10,000 units a month to essentially nothing. The company filed for bankruptcy in September 1983 before the Osborne 2 shipped. What Adam Osborne had done was create what marketers would later call the Osborne effect, a case study in how a premature announcement can cannibalize the product it is meant to celebrate. Researchers studying product launch timing at MIT Sloan found that the psychological mechanism is basic expectancy theory. Consumers will delay a purchase when they believe a superior option is imminent. The announcement didn't just tell customers something was coming, it told them that what they currently had was already obsolete. That is a different kind of information. The cruelty of the Osborne effect is that the announcement was an act of genuine confidence, the enthusiasm of someone who had built something real and wanted to share it. The company's own momentum produced the press conference. Being the CEO, having the credibility, having the platform, the promotion gave him the megaphone that made the damage possible. You have almost certainly told someone a better version was coming. Think about what that did to their use of the current one. Scale it to 10,000 units a month and see where the boundary is between confidence and self-destruction. You have survived everything. You were at Lehman Brothers in 1984 when American Express spun it off in a mess of internal fighting. You were there in 1994 when it nearly collapsed and was saved by a public offering. You survived every crisis, every market downturn, every internal challenge, every competitor who thought they could take you apart. By 1994, you are CEO. By 2000, you are Lehman. By 2008, you are the reason they call it the biggest bankruptcy in American history. Richard Fuld's tenure at Lehman ran 14 years. During that time, he built the bank from a rescued wreck into a $60 billion enterprise that was, on paper, one of the most profitable investment banks in the world. Every crisis he had survived made him more certain that the next one could be survived the same way. This is called experience. It is also called a prior that has not been updated. The specific trap that claimed Fuld and that researchers studying organizational overconfidence have named in detail is called escalation of commitment. Behavioral economists Hal Arkes and Catherine Blumer documented in 1985 what had already been observed empirically. Decision-makers who have committed resources to a failing course of action will continue committing more resources, driven by the psychological need to justify the prior investment. Sunk cost as a cognitive bias does not weaken when the stakes get higher, it gets stronger. Lehman's exposure to subprime mortgage instruments in 2007 and 2008 was visible. External analysts flagged it. Internal risk officers flagged it. The board received reports, and every time Fuld assessed the situation, he concluded what every prior survival had trained him to conclude: we are strong enough to ride this out. He doubled down. He refused merger discussions with potential buyers at several points where a deal was possible. He misread every signal in the direction of the model that had worked every time before. On September 15, 2008, Lehman Brothers filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, $613 billion in debt. When asked by Congress whether he had any regrets, Fuld testified that he second-guessed every single decision he had ever made. 14 years of being right. One category of decision that was different from every previous one. The promotion had built the track record that made the final error feel impossible until it wasn't. You have never worked in technology. You're a marketing genius, specifically a sugared water marketing genius. You spent 12 years at PepsiCo building campaigns so effective that they repositioned a company that had been losing for decades. The Pepsi Challenge. That was you. You are very good at creating desire for things people don't need. In 1983, Steve Jobs calls you. The pitch is famous. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? You say yes. You become CEO of Apple Computer. And for several years, it goes fine. The Macintosh launches while you were there, revenues grow, the company looks healthy. Then you fire Steve Jobs, and then everything becomes your problem. John Sculley's decade at Apple produced a product decision so infamous it became a case study in business schools globally, the Newton. The Apple Newton Message Pad, launched in 1993, was Sculley's vision of what personal computing should become, a handheld device with handwriting recognition, a personal digital assistant, the future. It was expensive, slow, and its handwriting recognition famously did not work. The press satirized it relentlessly. The product that was supposed to define the next decade of Apple became the punchline of a decade of magazine covers. What researchers studying executive succession identify in the Sculley case is a competence domain problem. MIT's Donald Schoen described it as the difference between technical rationality, the ability to apply known techniques to well-defined problems, and reflective practice, the ability to navigate novel, ill-structured situations where the problem itself isn't clear. Sculley was exceptional at technical rationality in consumer marketing. Product vision for a technology platform is reflective practice. The promotion assumed they were the same skill. He was CEO of Apple from 1983 to 1993. When he left, Apple was in decline. When Steve Jobs came back 4 years later, one of his first acts was to cancel the Newton. The question that the Sculley decade asks is not whether he was talented, he clearly was. The question is whether talent that is genuinely exceptional in one domain creates a blind spot about the other domains that now belong to you. You have a talent. You have been given a role that is mostly not about that talent. Notice which parts of your job feel like your job and which parts feel like something you're pretending to do.